Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to episode 3 of the Live For You live stream. And today we're going to be discussing standards versus preferences. I think oftentimes people kind of use the words interchangeably when they're not actually interchangeable. And so we're just going to be discussing from a biblical point of view about, different biblical standards that are out there, misconceptions about preferences, misconceptions about standards, and just ways that we as women and men can, uphold the right standards. And so today I'm going to be joined by Dee and Tito. And if you haven't seen episode 1 and 2, make sure you check it out. And yes, I'm just going to welcome them on. Hey guys.
Hi.
Hi.
Great. So we're just going to jump into this saucy topic. If you'd like to briefly introduce yourself, I guess your relationship status, so that there's context, and then we'll get right into it.
Yeah, my name is Tito and I'm single.
Nice. And Dee?
So sorry,
it's all good. Okay, cool.
All right, yes.
Dee, let me introduce Dee. Dee is married. She's been married for a minute, for a while. So yeah, we have two different perspectives here. It's going to be married, single perspectives. So let's kick off. So I've actually heard, to both of you, have you ever been told that your standards are too high or you're too picky? I'll start from you, Tito.
No, I haven't.
You've never been told that you're okay, cool. Dee, I'm gonna skip you because I know background. That's all good. I been told? I think I've been told in ways before. Not often at all, but like I think I've had some passing comments at times, which is interesting. So if we had to define standards versus preferences, my definition would be standards from a Christian. Standards are biblical standards that we have, like being a believer, being loving, having, fruits of the spirit, things like that. That's a standard. Preferences are things like, he has to be 6 foot plus, he has to be from the same country, same tribe, stuff like that. That's a preference. That's not a standard. And so when you hear the word standard, what do you guys actually think of? Like, what comes to mind?
I'll let you go first. I'm just going to quiet down. Give you 1 second, yeah?
That's fine.
Yeah, I think the same. You can break them into spiritual or natural, like you said, color, tribe, origin. It's not it's not a godly standard. That's just preference.
It is a preference, right? Not to say it's bad. Yeah.
Something like having a job, earning, potential, being responsible is that's a godly responsibility, I think, but we'll go into that.
Yeah, we will get into that. That's cool. Yeah. And what about you, Dee?
So the question was,
what comes to mind when you think of standards, preferences?
For me, standards is, first of all, I don't know if you mentioned that, Tito, but that if he's Christian, that's for me, that's a standard. It's not a preference. I wouldn't prefer my husband to be Christian. I'd want him to be Christian. And then other than that is I guess the core values, and the norms that he has. I don't want a hood rat. I want someone who's serious. I want someone who's serious, who has ambition, who's working on something, who's going somewhere, and the vision is clear. Yeah. For me, that's standard. And then the rest, as far as looks, as far as height, that's preferences, and we can manage that.
We'll manage. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. And so, in terms of standards that are out there, then, because I know we briefly said it, let's actually discuss them, because I know there's different Bible verses that talk about standards for a Christian overall. For example, I guess, yeah. So obviously, be loving God, serving God, fruits of the Spirit. 1 Corinthians 13 talks about, what is love? That's patient, kind, long-suffering, all of these things. Could you name some standards? Some biblical standards.
Don't be unequally yoked.
Yeah,
That's just the main one. And then you're talking about fruits of the spirit, right?
Yeah.
Well, before that, for me, is the word of God says that Christ asks men to love the wife as Christ loved the church, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I mean, it's a no-brainer that my husband or my husband to be must love me. Do you know what I mean? But it's not the same as just, oh yeah, I love you. The way Christ loves the church, there's so much more details to that, in a sense where, there's so many, like as the body of Christ, there's so many times we fall short, but because of the love, he's merciful, he's gracious. And that's how I would want my husband to be towards me, especially if I'm trying. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I'm trying to be the best wife I can be, the best mother I can be, the best woman to him I can be. So in that space, I'd want my husband to be gracious towards me. If I mess up in certain areas, I'm happy to learn and grow and move on, as opposed to being, battered down and tarnished and all of that. If I was to mess up, so yeah, for me, that one's a big one.
That is a big one. I'm gonna put a Bible verse. What about you, Tisa?
I think it's that gentleness. Can't overlook it, because even the Bible tells the husbands to deal with their wives according to understanding. So if somebody can't be patient, they can't be gentle. Much more difficult time understanding their wife. As
they were going to be discussing standards versus preferences. I think. Yeah, no, I agree. That's really good. And so in terms of, I guess, in this day and age, I'm sure we've all come across different people with different standards, different preferences, Christians. I think what I want to really touch on today is kind of, I guess, when it comes to preferences, what I've seen is that people tend to blur the lines between a standard and a preference. And so they will cut off a guy that comes to them if he's not 6 foot plus, they're like, bye. If he's not, I don't know, if he's not even from like the same exact tribe as them, and that's a whole other story. But yeah, they will cut him off. Like if he's not, there's so many examples. And I guess in my journey of just understanding just about God, biblical standards, and the fact that we often put culture and we often put the worldly stuff into finding partners, or into the people that approach us. And so kind of tell me your stance when it comes to preferences. Like over time, have you changed? Like have you gone from like, oh yeah, he needs to be high earner, he needs to have like 6 figures coming through, I'm not even considering him, or have you, like, what's your journey been like with that whole preferences thing?
Should we go first?
Go on,
I
Tisa.
don't mind. What was I going to say? So I'll start with scripture, because 1 Samuel 16 tells us that, I was thinking about it earlier this week, actually on the weekend, because the prophet that God was speaking through himself thought that in his mind, he said, I think surely this is God's anointed one. This is God I must choose this guy, because men look on the outward appearance. So that was the theme of a youth conference that I was a part of my charity for a while back, and we did a song on it actually with the youth, and it was so good because I can get a bit excited about that, but I helped them to write the song, and the scripture stuck because the song stuck, and God looks at that outward, God looks at the inward, but we look at the out. So I mean, I mentioned I was in a relationship before, and the guy wasn't from my tribe. It wasn't that wasn't my priority. That was not my priority. Was that he was manifesting fruits of the spirit.
Yeah.
And so, like we've already discussed, in terms of like high earning potential, I think what becomes a problem is people think people are commodities. But I was at another women's meeting recently, and Pastor Bimbo Falade, I think I mentioned, she's a pastor at the Liberty Church London, and she basically answered someone's question about, a lot of millennials, Gen Z ask this same question. Her her response was, it's never a good idea to treat people as commodities. It will always lead. It's never going to have a good ending. So that is not a good way to treat people. And then,
right.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's my answer.
But then even to jump off that before you go, D, I guess there's a difference between treating someone like a commodity. So it's like, oh, you know, if you're not, you know, earning whatever, then it's a wrap. And kind of the practical standards of, and I think you mentioned this, D, in episode 1 about the whole provider thing. Doesn't necessarily mean that the man has to even earn more necessarily, but they have to bring something. Like they have to be providing something. And that's just like a practical thing that's important. But yeah, you can go ahead, D.
Yeah, so I was going to mention as far as looks, because I think you mentioned something earlier about you know, what if, you know, he's not he doesn't fit the criteria of the looks that you're looking for, like a tall, you know, dark skin, light skin, I don't know. So for me, I think it's so important to be attracted to your partner. Like,
you should be
as
attracted.
I mean, I'm not saying that, okay, so if he ticks all the other boxes as far as provider and he's got a good job, he's got potential, you feel that he's heading somewhere and you want to be part of the journey with him, you have a similar vision, then yeah, I mean, that's the most important part. And obviously you're not going to go dashing now because you don't think he's, you know, attractive enough. But if you two love the person, then I feel like obviously the way you see him would be beyond, like he will become beautiful to you. The inside, like the man that he is, he'll become beautiful to you. Now, outside, you know, physically, I also feel on the other hand that it is important to be attracted to your partner, because you're going to be with this person every day. You know? You're gonna wake up to this person every day, and you're gonna like the way he's looking when he's waking up and he's got that bad breath. You're gonna be like, oh. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it's very key to be attracted to your partner. And then as far as what was the rest of the question as far as other standards?
I think no, I don't remember. As in what, when it comes to, I guess even just your stance on standards and stuff. Yeah.
And okay, cool. So the other thing I was going to mention is, for me personally, I met my now husband when I was 17, which meant that my standards were different. So someone who's 25 plus, who has seen a lot, their standards would be different. So at 17, you're living with your mum and dad. You're not necessarily thinking about marriage. You're thinking, oh, you know, he's, you know, my boyfriend kind of thing. And even if you do think about marriage, because you've been together for a while, again, the standards different. So for me, for instance, right, I wasn't thinking, okay, this guy has to have money. He has to have, you know, good job. Because me, myself, I'm searching for myself as well. I'm like, I'm going to school. I'm trying to graduate. I'm trying to do this. So for me, we're on the same level. Like you two are going to uni. You're trying to study. You're trying to graduate as well. So for me at that stage, the standard that I had was, first of all, I didn't want, because obviously growing up in Peckham, you know, you see all sorts in Peckham, right? Growing up in Peckham, and I was like, no, I don't want no street boy one. Okay. And even though he was like, I think he did Peckham Academy. He went to one bait school in Peckham, but like something as simple as earring, right? Some people find it fine for their boyfriends to have earring, but for me, growing up, especially coming from an African household, I associated that with hood and street and like not a really good look you want to bring to your mom at home. And funny enough, he had one ear pierced when I met him. And I was like, I'm so sorry, but I can't bring that home. Like, you've got to take that out. And he did take it out because, you know, he was serious about me. So he did take it out. So certain little things like that, then because obviously I was younger, those are the small things. For me, appearance was important. He obviously had to respect me. When I say appearance, I'm talking about like how, just by looking at you, how do you present yourself to my family? If I was to present you, are they gonna, if is an auntie gonna see me on a bus with you and say, oh, I saw D with this wretched looking boy, you know, I don't know what she's doing, what she's involved in. Are they gonna suspect things just by looking at you, you know? So image was important then. And then yeah, but I do think it's different though. When you get to like 25 plus, you've gone to uni. Most sometimes, I mean not everyone, but you've seen that working world. You've seen, I'm assuming you've seen the working world. You've probably gone to school. You've seen different guys, and then now that you're possibly working, you're thinking, okay, cool. The kind of guy I want to be with, you know, he's got to work as well. You got to show me that you're a provider. But when I'm 17, I'm not thinking that you got to show me you're a provider. You know what I mean? It's different.
Yeah.
But yeah, let me not take over. Go ahead.
No, that's good. That's good. And like as you said, I guess because you got married younger, or you met your now husband a lot younger, you had different priorities then. Now, if you had met him when you were 25 plus, you would have slightly different priorities. But you still saw like the character was still a big thing. Being attracted to him is still
I saw a lot of potential in him when we were younger. I saw, okay, cool, this guy, like, he's working, he's also going uni, he has his own apartment, he looks like, you know, a serious guy, you know, I saw potential. Not that he had the most money, you know what I mean? But he had potential. Yeah.
So let's talk on that topic of potential, because I think sometimes we can put too much emphasis on potential in. So let me just give examples. So for example, maybe you see someone and they have, I don't know. Okay. Yeah. Basically, I just know talking to different people, different situations, sometimes we can put too much emphasis on potential where we shouldn't. And I think something that different pastors say, and that is pretty biblical, is that you should look at people's patterns rather than potential. So if you can see that, okay, there's traits that they've consistently done to show that this is likely what, you know, they're going to grow into, rather than just go off like, okay, well, maybe they've done this thing one time. Oh, that's potential. Let me just run with that thing. So for example, with you, Dee, with your now husband, you clearly saw that he had patterns, like he had consistent things, consistent character, consistent I don't know, ambition, like working towards that ambition in a consistent way. You saw that relatively. Maybe she didn't because she's thinking, but I'm going to assume for most people, you tend to go off things that you can see consistently. Whereas other people, they just see maybe one thing and they're like, oh, okay, well, there's a guy approaching me. Let me just run with it because I want to bait. So Tise, let's okay, no, Dee, you can go.
Yeah, no. So you're talking about consistency, what I've seen with him consistently, and I think the pattern that I saw is that he always held a job. He was very consistent with that. His house, well, to be fair, I think he got a bit comfortable when I started cleaning up and cooking. He got a bit comfortable, but he was consistent as far as keeping his home. His home was always neat, always clean. And then as far as, obviously, so for me, that's what I looked at when we were much younger. But obviously, speaking from a perspective, if I was 25 plus, then I would also look at the family. That is so important. What kind of family do you come from?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what are they like? Is your husband, is your brother and cousin, are they? It will sound so bad, yeah, but I'm being really real. Are your cousins and stuff ones to be in and out of prison? You know,
good question.
Like, they want to be in and out of prison. Are you likely to be involved in that kind of lifestyle? And even if you're the good one out of the bunch, it's so important. And even spiritually speaking, when you think about spiritual warfare, cycles, things that happen in the family that keep it's just things that just always keeps happening in that same family. You want to know where you're coming from. Where am I going with you? What do you want in your life? And I think you start to think differently, because for me personally, I come from a broken home. My parents got together, and my mum remarried, my dad remarried, and then they had kids. And he also, what did he come from? He didn't really come from he didn't come from a broken home. He came from a polygamous home. So it wasn't so much broken; it was polygamous. So at that stage, it's more okay. Me personally, I want to be married and want a home where there's mommy and daddy, because I didn't come from that. I want to give my kids the best, you know. And him too, he's seen the hurt and the pain of coming from such a home where there's rivalry, there's this and there's that, and then he's also saw that, you know what, when I have my wife, I want it to be a unit. I don't want it to be a situation where, you know, there's I don't know, other women involved, or you know, we break up. Let's try hard to make this work. And obviously we've been married now, it's going to be 7 years soon we've been married, and we've gone through our fair shares of up and down. But I think one key thing for us, we thank God that the God is at the center of our relationship. But one
Yeah.
key thing for us is like, divorce is not an option. Whatever it is,
Mhm.
people are doing much worse. We can get through this with God.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, that's really good. Yeah, that's really good. And I love how you ended on, yeah, Christ being the center. And I think that's what makes the difference oftentimes. It's like you can have all of these other external things, but if you don't have God in the middle of your relationships, even
100%.
friendships, even any sort of relation, like if you don't have God, like honestly, that foundation isn't really there. But yeah, let's go back to that topic of patterns. So Tita, when it comes to, obviously you gave us a story last episode of that guy came into your life, you had different standards when it comes to purity, so obviously you obviously have standards. So name some of your own standards, and also name your stance on like patterns and seeing consistency. What examples you have?
Yeah, so I just add to what Dee said so well. So it's about keeping God in the relationship, and then also, oh yeah, so having God and then keeping God, because you know Jesus' parents lost him, 3 days. So whenever you lose Jesus, go back and find him. If you ever lose Jesus, to those out there, if whatever situation you're in, just find Jesus again, because he is the most important ingredient. He will keep
100%.
the relationship up until the very end, and that's what we want. I mean, I don't know everybody's personal preference, but my want is for my marriage to, like John 15 says, I've called you that you may bear fruit, and that fruit may abide. That will have abiding fruits, even, like, oh, my audio is quiet. Oh my gosh, so sorry. Am I speaking louder now? Can you hear me better?
Yeah, it's fine. I think, yeah,
Oh,
you can.
okay. I hope everyone heard what I said, because it was really important.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's audible.
Good. So, yes, so that fruit may abide. Yes, I was saying. So the fruit of our marriages will abide. That's even a prayer. And, for generations to generations. But before I ramble on, you asking me about patterns and values. So I think for me personally, like a very important value is accountability. Now, if a guy wants to start taking me somewhere, he's like, I don't want anyone to know. I want to, yeah. So no, that's not going to work, because I think accountability is important, especially as a Christian. One of my values is a Christian living after the spirit, not just by words. And yes, because it's very, very possible. I know not everybody wants to marry a Christian, or they are happy to allow certain things, but we're following Jesus here. We're following Jesus. And that's a narrow path to follow. So I think that it's not so that's a red flag. So I think everybody should understand their own values, what they will accept, what they won't accept. Family is important to me as well. So if I see family as important, and another person, the person I'm dating doesn't see family as such a value, maybe because their own family background, that's one of the important things to understand, especially as you grow older and you think, okay, could I fit into this person's family? Dee mentioned the different family backgrounds her and her husband have, and how that's informed who they are. So it's actually very important to get to know that. And I was listening to Chevelle Franklin. I listened to a few different people that inspire me and build me up, which is another thing that people should do. And she was talking briefly about, the sons of Korah, who stir up rebellion. They stirred up rebellion against Moses in Numbers chapter 16, and you don't want that. You don't want your in-laws. You have to live with them. You don't have to live with them, but you have to get on with them. You have to honor them.
Yeah.
because they're part of your family now. So yeah, something to read in your own time.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think, yeah, family. I mean, you and Dee have mentioned about family, and just, I guess, because so what I hear sometimes too is not even just Gen Z, millennials too. They'll be like, well, no, it's just me and my man. That's it. Like, if we get on, then we get on. Like, but not my mom says. But like, people say that.
No. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I
and I
agree
guess
with that.
Dee, if you can jump in on that, because
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, first of all, courting. I think it's so, like Tito said, the accountability is important. Like, I might be so into the guy, right, that I would not see certain red flags. I will
yeah,
just bypass red flags. Whereas friends and family may, bring out these red flags. Like, why are you guys going out so late? Why is he always wanting you to come to his house? Why
yeah,
is it that you're not in public places around other people? Why does it always have? I'm not saying that you can't have you and you time where you
yeah,
get to know each other, but they can bring up these red flags to say like, wait, this doesn't sound too right, and or they can see that, or maybe he has a tendency to speak for you or to cut you off, or I
yeah,
don't know, like these small
yeah,
things. You may think, oh, I'm going to his wife, so maybe that's the way that I should submit, whereas someone outside may see and be like, like he seems
yeah,
a bit like this, or this is a bit dodgy, or. So I think it's so important to have accountability, people who are you are accountable to. Do you
yeah,
understand? So for me, for
yeah,
example, I have a close friend whereby she was caught in this person, and like whenever if he was at my place or wherever, I was like in the middle. Like she herself didn't want anything dodgy to happen or
yeah,
anything like that. So they were really big on purity. So she was like the you know just kind of be there and be accountable. And I really was. So sometimes I would even check, right, it's a bit late now, I think, you know. So yeah, in general, I think that it's important to have people that you're accountable to. Now, as far as a family, it's also important to get on with the family. I mean,
yeah,
I've seen other relationships where the parents are totally unreasonable as far as, oh, he's not from the same tribe, and he's like, that's not for me. I'm Christian. For me, I don't feel that's godly. Like, what's his tribe got to do with the fact that I feel that he's the one, or God gave peace about this person? What's tribe got to do with that? And I've seen so many situations, and one story that I've heard that really, so sorry about the background noise.
that's right.
One that really, hurt my feelings. Just hearing the story, this girl was in love with this guy, and they tried to do the diary once, twice, and it didn't work out because I think she was Ghanaian and he was Nigerian. And both families were just didn't. But the guy was good, the girl was good. They both had good positions, they loved each other. But because the girl wanted to honor her parents so much,
Yeah,
she said, okay, we got to stop our relationship. They were really good together. And then unfortunately later on she had another relationship where it just didn't work out. So where I'm going with this is that, yes, it's important to listen to your parents and
yeah,
family, friends, when it comes to I'm talking about Christian ones. I'm not talking about anyone that will come and interject, and and obviously it's good as well to have discernment for yourself.
yeah,
But where I'm going with this is that, with all that being said, parents are important, but when you see that it becomes it doesn't align with the word of God, the reasons why they say no, the reasons why
yeah,
they are opposed,
yeah,
it doesn't align with the word of God,
yeah.
then then you have a leg to stand on to be like, oh, mom, I don't fully agree.
Yeah,
You know,
I agree.
I don't fully agree. So yeah, I think being having people around the relationship to see you guys grow together, to see that okay, they're moving correct, yes, and also family. It's kind of like double. Do you know what I mean? It comes on two
Yeah,
different angles.
yeah,
Are they spiritual or are they like more religious and cultural? Is that their basis of not accepting the relationship or yeah.
yeah. That's a big, that culture thing is a big one, and it's something I've wrestled with myself. I think you grow up, you do hear the whole, they must be from the same, they have to be
I'm
from.
not gonna lie, I had the same thing when my
Yeah,
mom found out that the guy I wanted to be with before I introduced my now husband to my mom. When I told him, oh yeah, I'm seeing someone, I found someone and he's Nigerian. She was like, huh? You
yeah,
went to Nigeria? Oh, because I'm Ivorian, by the way.
yeah,
She was like, oh, everywhere, just Nigeria you went to, because Nigerians have a reputation, you know. Unfortunately, as amazing as they have, you know, as great of the qualities may be, they have so many great qualities about, you know, their culture and, you know, all of these things. But Nigeria as a whole, you know, there is a stigma attached to it. And my mom was like, I mean, she's a cool mom. She was like, all right, cool, you know, if it's him you like, okay. But the first reaction wasn't like a happy, yeah, exactly. It was more like, are you sure? And then she saw him and he's like big and hench and everything. She's like, I'm not worried that one day he might.
Oh,
but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's so funny. What about you two? So I know you said that the person that you were with wasn't actually from your tribe. What is your stance on that, and your families too, actually, if you don't mind?
Yeah, no, my parents are supportive, you know.
No matter
So
what.
if I bring a guy, as long as he serves the Lord and there's evidence of that, I'm sure they will support me. So it's not like you must marry a Nigerian because I'm Nigerian.
Yeah. Okay.
He has to be from that tribe.
Yeah.
No.
But that often is the case for like at least a lot of people I know. That tends to be the case. But anyway, I guess that's just one element of preferences. Let's just categorize. That is a preference. It's not in the Bible that they must be from the same place as you. Obviously there's benefits to it. That's undeniable. Like there's just benefits, especially if you have a strong culture. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, nowadays, 21st century. I think if we look at Genesis, was it 24, where Isaac has to find is looking.
Oh yeah, from the same.
You know.
Yeah. I was actually thinking about that.
Yeah, and that's just Christianity. That's from the same stock. So the kingdom of God. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I think if we relate that to today's day and age, I think it's about being unequally yoked. Do you know what I mean? But I would say that personally. Sorry, I would say that personally. I do see a lot of situations where even within the same country.
Oh yeah, tribalism. Yeah, tribal.
I see it, and me personally, I've had to learn about the culture, about bowing down, and everyone older than you is sis or bro. And obviously, I know about auntie, but everyone older than you is sis or bro. You can't call your older brother John. And I found that weird because, I mean, maybe it's not with everybody. Maybe it's just the Yoruba culture. But me growing up, my brother's Joe. Like, I'm not gonna call him to me or sis so and so. But I had to learn that culture, and you know, there is a benefit of being with someone with the same culture because you just get it. You just get it. You skip the barrier of having to learn and understand, and people being offended and everything. Because I did have to learn a lot about, you've got to bow down to say how. Bow down, and then when you feel bad because you don't know, you kind of look bad. But being there is about having the same culture, and then it's still a beautiful thing to be from different cultures and learning as well from different cultures.
I think it just depends on willingness, really. Like, what are you willing to? And that's what I think that's important for the individual to know. Because again, I've seen examples of where the woman is from a completely different country or different tribe, and they go into it thinking that this is gonna, but then they realize, oh no, I need to learn this, I need to learn this, I need to learn this. Oh, and so it's like just being mindful of the fact that that is a fact generally, depending on the family they come from. And some people they don't think about stuff like that. They're just like, I just see him, we get on, that's it. So yeah. And so let's move on, because the topic is, you know, are you too picky? Are your standards too high? So let's talk about the list. I know a lot of people have different takes on having a list. But what are your views on a list? I've heard, I think even like Michael Todd passed away, he was talking about, he was like, oh, you should rip up your list, and how you shouldn't really have a list because, you know, God knows who you need, whatever, he can just bring that into your life. But what's your take?
I personally think that you need to know what you want. I mean, ripping up the list, is it just like, don't put the guy in a box? Is that what it means? Because I know what I want. And if that's not what I want, I mean, okay, so I'm not talking about, you know, if you're a good guy and, you know, you're Christian, you're God-loving, you come from a good home and all of that, but you're not 6 foot plus. I'm not talking about that. what I mean to say is that if one thing I would say is if I have a list, I need to match the list.
Ooh, energy. Yeah.
So if I am looking for my husband to be at a certain stage of his life, then
Yeah.
I need to make sure I'm there. You understand? Because very often the woman is down there, right? And she wants the man to be up there for him to be the provider. Da, 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 da. And to be fair, some dynamics it kind of works. But when I say down there, I'm talking about as far as profession, as far as education, like the woman could have gone to school, she could have been, a nurse and all of that. But now that she's married, she could be at home now, a housewife looking after the kids. And then she could even decide to start a new business. But that doesn't mean that you're down there. You're still up there because tomorrow, if things change in your marriage and the dynamics of your life, you and your husband, he decides to say, okay, cool, maybe you need to go back into work. You've got the education there. You're there with him, but it's just changed. So for me personally, as far as the list, I definitely why am I throwing away the list?
Yeah. No,
But just remember that if there's a list, I need to match that list. I need to be the same ambitious person who will push him to where he needs to be, and I would want him to push me too, to encourage each other. But before I get married, if I was 25 and I'm not married and I'm looking to be married, what would be in my mind would be, okay, cool. If this is the kind of man I want, let me up my game. I want to be driving. I want to be out there. I want to have. Can you see these men? You see these men? Look at it. They're coming in thinking, what am I talking about? But yeah.
Where's the bag?
I don't know. Sorry, they're literally thinking like, okay, what is she saying? But yeah. So as I was saying, yeah, I would need. Sorry, they threw me off. I would need to match him.
match your list.
So
That's sweet.
That's the same kind of level. To level myself up so that the value that I'm putting on this guy that I want, let me be worth that value as well.
We're gonna talk about that because I think that's where the whole your standards are too high can actually come in a logical context. Because I've had some discussions. So Tisa, on that same topic of not matching the list, but like having a list. What's your take on that?
Yeah, no, I actually watched the sermon, listened to the sermon by Pastor Mike Todd, where he was referring to rip up the list. But I like this approach because it's not realistic to, they always say be what you want to.
Like attract or whatever.
If you're looking for someone that likes to read books and you don't go to the library, then you're not going to find a person that likes reading books because you're not there. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. But Uncle Mike, Pastor Mike,
Uncle Mike, Nigeria.
Pastor Mike, he was. I think he was definitely referring to like carnal,
unrealistic expectations.
Yeah, and that definitely isn't going to help you find. You're not looking at character at all. You're just looking at external things, which a lot of people are just very external now. And
especially with Instagram and everything, isn't it?
Yeah,
social media just is something else.
It's almost sold a lie to people because you just see like the highlights one, and you're just like, oh, okay, well, they're a good-looking couple. They seem to be killing it. They seem to look really rich. And it just
just not suited it's kind of like, oh, Do you know what I mean? Like, let me give you an example. For example, my older brother, he's such a phenomenal man. He's hardworking and everything. He does he's got his own business whereby he does houses, like does the flooring, painting, decorating, everything. If you're the kind of Instagram girl who's looking for that Instagram image, you will look at what he's doing and be like, oh no, not really. Like, his clothes are mucky, this and that. But this guy is so hardworking, so driven. He works for himself, which means that there's no. So sometimes he works even more than the 9-to-5er.
Oh
right?
Very
so much longer, and his earnings are ridiculous. But because you would look at the appearance, you start to think, oh no, this guy, he's sharp, clean suited and booted. Because of, I think Instagram has a lot of influence on what people classify as, put up there on their list as far as the kind of guy I would like. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I honestly think that obviously there's different. Sorry, people keep coming in. They keep.
It's fine.
Guys, forgive me. I've got 4 kids in the house. I've got. Do you know what I mean? They just keep coming in and out. They're not in bed yet. But yeah, let you go on. Go ahead.
Okay, no, that's cool. And what about you, Tita? Just regarding, I guess, even actually, let's go back to the whole matching your list, because again, you and I are on more on the level ground. So in terms of, obviously, you have different people who are approaching us. You have a list. I'm assuming you have at least standards that you're looking for. Would you say that you maybe become more of that list, or would you say that, yeah, where's your stance there? Where's your take?
Let
me think about that.
It's a lot of people don't think deeply. I think it's very important to think and to make wise decisions. I'm very considered. Yeah. I mean,
okay. Let me interject. So in terms of, I have different friends from different circles of life, different levels. A lot of them are single. Cool. And I think through discussion and stuff, a lot of people realize that actually they don't meet a lot of their own list. So for example, they'll be expecting something that they're not. And I guess to clarify, the Bible does say that, you know, there are different levels for a man and a woman. Like, it's not like, so the husband's called to love, and actually I'm going to put on the screen now. The husband's called to love your wives as Christ loved the church, gave himself up for her. We're not necessarily asked to do that as women. We're asked to submit to, you know, a husband. We're asked to, you know, the whole Proverbs 31 thing of being homemakers. You know, there's things that are different and distinct between a man and woman, and it's biblical, and that's okay. I think when it comes to shallower stuff, it's like, okay, well, you know, I want him to be earning 6 figures, but you're on like 3. That's where the issues can come. Or for example, if, oh, you want him to be, you know, kind, but you're not even kind yourself. You want him to be respectful, you're not respectful. Basic stuff like that is what a lot of people don't think about. And it's something I also have to challenge myself with, thinking and just making sure I, you know, come correct too. Because it's like, you can have these things and desire these things, but actually you're not that thing yourself. And it's just, obviously it's definitely a process of becoming, and it's a process of understanding and learning yourself. But I think it's just really important that even the younger generation, especially, that they just, we just all become the better versions of ourselves, and we all look to grow and improve as people. Because that's the thing about like marriage, and just because I know so many people that are married and happily married, like they do say you grow, like you are going to grow. And if you don't grow and you're not willing to grow, then that can be like really bad for the relationship, because it's like, well, if you're going to be stubborn and the other person's growing, is that even fair? So yeah, I think we're probably all on the same page when it comes to lists. It is important to know what you want. It's important to have standards. It's important to even write them down, so that if someone comes to you, you're not just like, oh, let me consider them, even though they don't, you know, they don't meet this thing, they don't meet this thing. And I guess even you, Tita, with your example of purity, you knew that you were on the straight and narrow when it comes to purity. Like, you had a goal, you know, as a Christian. Same for me. And it's like, yeah, those things are important. So go on, Tita.
So I think in terms of this list, meeting my own list, you know, in terms of character, we're always developing in character. So I think that is something I can't be too hard on someone else about.
Yeah.
But give them room to change. Now the issue is, if they don't want to change, then, you know.
Yeah.
Even about, do you know what? Let me interject on that. Even about changing. I think that certain people show you who they are. And they've been like that, like, you know, they've developed. I mean, I'm not saying that change is not possible. It definitely is. But someone who's been like that, it's going to be down to the woman. Okay, cool. You would hopefully, you know, you're hoping that one day he would be different or respond different in certain situation, or maybe even dress different. I don't know, whatever it is that you're looking for, right? But then you also need to remember that's the way you found him. So are you willing
Yeah.
to, you know, manage that? Are you willing to kind of
Yeah.
deal with that, put up with that?
That's
Like,
nice.
I was even talking to this pastor, and she was like, she was courting this guy before she met her husband, and he had certain etiquettes that she was like, like, even if
Yeah.
he was in a good position, but I'm talking about financially, and you know, he loved God and everything, but certain etiquettes like that put her off. Like, for instance, like if he's at a table and he's always making funny, like I don't even make the noises, but he's always making funny noises, or he's just certain things that are just like a put off, but that's his character. She was
Yeah.
like, no. So I'm laughing, but it's a reality. There's certain things like this is just how the person is.
Yeah.
Do you mind it, or is it like a big put off?
Yeah.
Do
That's
you know what I
big.
mean?
That's big.
So yeah, like when it comes to changing someone, sometimes it's more like about, first of all, willing to change yourself. Like this standard
Yeah.
that you want in this guy, you see, this is how he wants you. Like everything else, that's the one thing that's bugging you.
Yeah.
Are you willing to compromise and, you know, walk with it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But
change
that's
is
what
definitely possible.
yeah, that's sort of like etiquette, isn't it? Um, that can be taught.
Yeah.
For example, something like lying. If someone's
Yeah.
lied, and
Yeah,
that's fundamental. You know, that's the standard. So,
Yeah.
in terms of finance, I'm not. I can say heartily, I'm not earning six figures, so it's not going to be a
Yeah.
possibility for me to be having that on my list. But I think
Yeah.
First Timothy 5:8 says it's a man should provide for his family, and the thing is, it's about their ego, because men, they have this need
Mm-hmm.
to work and to provide. So that's even good for the guy himself as a standard.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good. I'm gonna just put that on the screen. Yeah. And I think that a lot of women use that, to be fair. They're like, well, you need to be a provider. But it is biblical. And that's what I'm saying about the difference between biblical standards and preferences. Because yeah, again, it doesn't say that you necessarily have to be the breadwinner earning far more than your wife, or your wife has to be at home. Like, it's just, what are you bringing to the table? And I was going to touch on something briefly in terms of when it comes to, okay, so being too picky. Let's talk about actual preferences though. So when and I'm going to go to you, Tita. In terms of preferences, what are some of your preferences?
I trust God. I trust God so much that I just love God. I just trust Him. So I'm not boasting or anything, but He did. I mean, the guy I was dating before, he was strong, well built, tall.
Mm.
You know, I wasn't complaining, but it's it is what it is. I mean, I was going for
Yeah.
a walk today, and every time I go for a walk, I observe some things like the birds, the flowers, and it just always amazes me that God created each and every flower.
Yeah.
He's fully aware of all the details.
Yeah.
So I constantly just go back to Him and say, what is your will for my life? Like, and it comes down to a relationship, but if I marry someone who's tall, well built, and black,
So
I'm not
sorry,
going to
Peter, are
complain.
you saying that you don't mind what you get, that like whatever God gives you, you get, you know? Or I mean, what are you?
I mean, I do trust God that much. He wouldn't.
I mean, it's good to trust God, but I mean, as a human being, that there is something that you would like or you would want, no,
Mm.
in a man.
I mean, I was. Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll think about it more deeply. I mean, while I have
Okay,
time, I'm thinking.
that's what I mean. For me, when I was at 17, 18, 19, obviously the standards, he has to be a good guy, all of that stuff. But I didn't think further than that. Do you know what I mean? I didn't think as far as, oh, you know, I don't know what the accent we put on men and marriage and everything. I wasn't thinking that far. But for me, I don't know. I would assume that, you know, you get to a certain stage where you just feel like, okay, cool. This is what I want in a man, this and that. And then you do your prayer, you get on your knees, okay, God, I mean, you know even if it's a situation, you know better than me. Like Tito was saying, you know better than me. You know, so just show me who is my husband, who is good for me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
That I totally get. I totally get what you're saying, but at the same time as well, in my mind, I don't know. For me, I definitely feel like you get to a stage where you've seen a lot, and it's what you would like in a guy, even if it's just physique.
Yeah,
Appearance.
external.
Yeah.
I'm just talking external. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in terms of what I've seen, what I've heard, what I've experienced. Like, I'm not gonna lie and say I don't have preferences and standards. Like, I definitely have standards that I'm not gonna shake on, but there's also, of course, there's preferences that I have, and I've met great and interesting people, and they meet different things, and so I think sometimes it is the case of, okay, you have this preference, but because this person, they meet the standards, they're God-fearing, that love can grow, like that affection can grow. But it doesn't mean that, oh, I'm just coming like, oh, okay, well, whatever shape, color, size, anything. Nah, I'm sorry, for me, I'm not like
what you like.
Yeah, I know what I like, but at the same time, I'm not like stuck in that, like,
Yeah,
okay,
which is good to be flexible.
Yeah, but I still stand for something. Like, if you don't stand for anything, like, you can like actually kind of fall for anything. Like, if you don't stand or have that standard, then what are you standing on? I'm not like ranting at you, I'm just saying in general for people watching. It's like, it is important to know what you stand for. It's important to not firstly know your value as a woman. It's also important to know what you're looking for, and also to know where you're going, because I think that then dictates what you look for too. Because if you don't really know, and again, this is different for different people, but if you generally know by a certain age that, okay, well, God has called me to do this, and then someone comes into your life and you're not going on a similar path, or they can't complement that, I think that can be problematic, because you can be like almost like grinding against each other in a bad way.
It's conviction as well.
Yeah, and so I think that's, again, I said in like the episodes before, it's really important to know who you are, know what are your callings, like what are the environments God has placed you in. Again, you grow, you change over time, you may be called to do different things, but at least for me, that's worked in the sense of like, I'm able to filter people that come into my life or try and approach me, because I know relatively what God has called me to, and I know I have standards, and if you're not meeting certain standards, then it's like, I don't.
Yeah, you know what? Can I just add to what you were saying about your calling? Like, for instance, right? You meet this guy. He's a great guy. He's a man of God. He loves God, and he's calling us even to be a pastor. You're like, yeah. But then, you know that God has called you to work in Parliament. Now, if you marry this guy, you're going to be a pastor's wife, and a pastor's wife entails so much more than just being an image. There's women this, and they probably even want to really be involved, let's say, with the church. You guys go to church, what your pastor, the amount of work that the pastor's wife puts into the ministry as well. But if you're called, if you like each other and everything, but then you're called to Parliament, which means that you're traveling around, you're doing public speaking, you're doing so much more outside of the ministry. That's what your career is calling you to do. At this stage, what do you do?
It depends what you're willing to do. I think if you're willing to compromise, and you're like, well, I'm called to Parliament, but this person that I'm really interested in is called to this. If you are willing to compromise and bend a bit when it comes to your own calling, and kind of shift your time, then so be it. But if you're not, then you have to think. You have to think deeply,
because God has clearly told you what your calling is.
Okay, right.
He told the person what their calling is.
If it doesn't complement, then.
But that's the issue. You really love each other. So where I'm going with this is that, like, these things commonly happen. With Christians and everything, they really like each other, but their calling and what God has, put, has planned for their future, that God has shown them, okay, this is where you're going to be. I don't know how you're going to get there, but this is how, they don't know how they're going to get there, but this is what God has shown them.
Yeah.
And it doesn't go, it doesn't align with the person that they're caught in. Many of the times I've seen these courtships being called up and be like, you know what? We love each other and everything, but let's just go our separate ways. Now, you saying that, are you willing to compromise? So, and then, you can think about what comes to mind when you say that for me is, okay, you know, if this year this is what is happening in our relationship, as far as, okay, you're ministering in I don't know, you're a pastor in London, right? You're a pastor in London, and I'm called to, I don't know, assistant mayor. Does that even exist? An assistant mayor working in Parliament in London? Then it kind of, it may go together because you're in the same city, but then now if you're called to different cities, then do you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
When the callings don't align, when everything else aligns but the callings don't align, that could be, you know, quite a tricky one as well.
Yeah, a lot of changes happen as well. I mean, you're talking with a lot of, you know, understanding of what marriage is because you know, you're married and you know that, you know, times change and you've got, you know, for example, someone could be wanting to do a training contract and then they get pregnant, they're married
Yeah.
already.
So what if the husband wants a baby like the 1 year after you guys get married, because he again, same scenario, is called to be a pastor, but you're called to be in Parliament. You don't want to be pregnant right now. Like, you've got so much to do within the whole, as a public figure, that being pregnant right now is a no-no. Do you know what I mean? So it's like there's so many that you really have to think far and put everything on the table. Is it worth it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is this marriage going to work?
People don't do that. I think that's the thing that I've realized, is that people don't think in long term when it comes to these things. It's just like the now, the emotions now, the approach now, or how I feel now. It's like, well, you're going to be with this person for the rest of your life, so you need to actually think deeper. And that's what I want for my generation. I want my generation.
If I can interject, I personally didn't think that far. Like, I really didn't
you
think
were
that
quite
far.
young. You were young.
Yeah, I was quite young. I really thought, like, okay, cool, I want to be this guy. I like this guy, this and that. Like, yes, we had these conversations as far as we want to be married, we want to have kids early, we want this, we want that. But obviously, because again, my context is the fact that I got married at 21.
Yeah.
I mean, we were quite young. So yeah, there's certain things that you don't really think about. But like I said earlier, when you get to a certain age,
you think
a lot, you look at your parents' marriage, your aunties, your uncles' marriage, your sisters, your siblings. You look at people in your church. You've got so many examples to see what you want, what you don't want, what could work for you. Do you know what I mean? That you would think twice about the kind of man or woman you get involved with, especially when it comes to their calling and everything.
Yeah, and I think that calling thing it shouldn't even be placed low. Like, it should be placed quite high. Like, 100%. One of the highest things, I think, at least for me, one of the highest things is like, what are we called to do? Does it complement or does it not?
Sorry, I've got so much in my mind that's popping up, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna put this Bible verse just because I think this is quite obviously this is in Genesis, you know, with Adam and Eve and how God made the helper who's right for Adam. And I think a lot of people emphasize the whole thing of like, okay, well, the guy's the one that finds you, pursues. He needs to know where he's going, and he needs to know if you complement where he's going. And I think that's biblical, right? And so that's, again, it goes back to men. And I might do this talk with guys too, when it comes to knowing where you're going, so that the woman can follow your lead. I think that's important. And a lot of guys, unfortunately, don't really know where they're going. And so it's like, how can you submit to something that has no direction? And that's a whole other discussion. But yeah, I think women, you should actually, and at least that's how I do. Yeah, whatever. It's like, you need to ask those questions, like, okay, where are you going? What's your vision? Where do you see yourself in this amount of years? Like, it's important to ask those questions and to see if you are able to like submit to that. Do you see yourself fitting in that? Can you see yourself helping? Because we're helpmates. Like, that's what we're created to be. Not that you don't have your own life and calling, but you also need to know that you're going to be supporting this person. Like, can you do that? Go on, Dee. You're going to say something?
What was I going to say? It left my mind. What was it? What's the last thing that you were speaking about before you mentioned that? It kind of left my mind.
We were talking about purposes and like how it's like quite important for one of the top important things for me when it comes to like complementing each other in terms of where you're going. Is that bringing it back to memory? You're muted.
Yes, I think so. Okay, so what I was going to say earlier is, for instance, I know this couple, right? I'm really, really close with a woman, and She plays the sax. They do music, and
Oh,
he's also into music, right? Which is amazing. And they're homeschooling and everything, which means that whatever they do, they carry their kids, they carry their family. They've got this show. They just get it. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
But their ministry is around
yeah,
music. Their calling is around music.
yeah,
So callings that I found so beautiful. The fact that they both have, funny enough, the same calling. Obviously, they love each other, they got married and everything,
yeah,
but it's like they've made it work as far as
yeah,
how you go to this event or this performance or this church, or whilst having a kid, the husband gets it. They both do it together at times. I find that beautiful. That is so
yeah,
beautiful.
same. And
Yeah,
yeah, I know a lot of couples like that, like married, who
yeah,
maybe he's a pastor, she's a pastor wife, or musician, or they just minister in similar spheres. Not to
yeah.
say that you have to
So
have the
beautiful.
same thing, but yeah, I love that. Yeah. It's great. But I was going to say something else. Okay, cool. So again, going back to the topic of being too picky. So what would you say is like? Obviously, this is subjective, and again, we're not saying. To anyone watching, we're not saying it's not good to have preferences. Like you have preferences because you're a human being. Like we all have preferences for friends. You're gonna have preferences for a partner. Like that's okay, but just not letting that surpass standards and like what a standard is. But anyway, let's go to being too picky. What would you, when you think of too picky, and this is obviously from a Christian stance, what comes to mind? Or having too high stand, well, I wouldn't say high standard, having too high preferences, what would that be?
For me, it's not being willing to be flexible and compromising. So I can't even give a specific because obviously it depends on the situation. But
Mm.
if you're with someone, if you're courting somebody, and um, that person, again, like I said, the list does exist. As much as you were saying throw it away, the list
Yeah,
exists.
yeah,
What you like in a guy, and
mm-hmm.
vice versa. For me, is if you're not willing to compromise on
Mm.
certain. I mean, there's things that you cannot compromise on. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah,
right? There's things
yeah,
that's like, nah, like you're not you're not stable. You're not this. Like, I mean, I'm so sorry, but I don't see my life with you. Like these, I'm not talking about the bait things. I'm
yeah,
talking about simple things as far as you know, looks or even relocating. Do you know
mm.
what I mean? Your job is here. For instance, you're in the UK. Your job is here. Your whole family's here. You're established here. Whereas your husband, he's thinking about going back to Nigeria and building a home and starting over there. Or not necessarily starting over, but let's say he's built a house over there, or he's building a house and hoping that once you get married and once the house is finished, you
Mm.
guys relocate there because he's got a good job there. Are you
Mm.
saying you're gonna leave the guy because your whole family's here, or
Mm.
everything that you know that you've built for yourself? You've gone to uni here. You've got your nursing job here. Are you looking to throw away the guy because of that?
Mm.
Like, or would you start to think, okay, well, let me compromise. Actually, I can go to Nigeria and see maybe I can get a job there.
Mm.
Whilst my husband too is in a good position, and we can together. So as far as being too picky for me is not willing to compromise where it makes sense to.
No, it makes sense. And I think that's the emphasis where it makes sense to, because
Yeah.
it's not like everything you should bend and break for. But yeah, you need to know what you're willing to compromise for, which is good. What about you, Tisa?
No, because Dee is so right, because some people end up marrying, and
Mm.
one has to live in Nigeria, one has to live in the UK,
Yeah, I've seen that
and
a
it's
lot.
actually a marriage situation, many marriage situations. So
Mm.
uh, things change.
Yeah.
I mean, my main points would just rest on 3 prayer points. Um, and obviously a lot of counsel, a lot of wisdom, and rethinking, maybe rejigging your list, etc. To those listening, is that my pastor, Pastor Adegail, he said this, pray that the two of you would together put 10,000 to flight. So that's vision being at one.
Vision. Mm-hmm.
God will continue to enlighten your understanding to know your vision for your life,
Yeah.
so that the two of you can put 10,000 to flight. And then, I pray that I would marry the bone of my bone and the flesh of my flesh. That's just the person that God has intended for me. A lot of,
Yeah.
obviously with reason and,
Yeah.
discussions. And then lastly, I would say, that it, oh, Ruth chapter 3 verse 3. My church is currently doing a fast right now. Always do it in June, and one of the fasts a couple of years ago, my pastor shared Ruth 3:3, and he said you're actually anointed to marry the right person. And if you go and read Ruth chapter 3 verse 3, you can read it and see what happened and the anointing there. And obviously with reason again, you consider things like definitely fruit of the spirit. If they're not demonstrating it, that's someone revealing their character. So but yeah, those three things in terms of list. Yeah, I mean, it's a process, isn't it? It's not, you don't get married in a day.
No.
And even some of the standards, you start to reconsider them. Like, I know a couple, she left her job to get married, and they're happily married, because that was necessary. That was a sacrifice that was needed for them to move on the journey. And God will always see you through anything. He's with you, even if you like God is with you. Like, he's not going to leave us. He will literally walk with us through our lives, and he says he'll be with us until the end of the age. So we can always call on him. He's our helper. Just rely on him.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm gonna just put the fruits of the spirit up on the screen. These are the sort of things, rightly so, that you should not only look for but emulate yourself. And this is a calling to not just husbands, wives, girlfriend, boyfriend, but this is to Christians as a whole. These are the things that we should, as individuals, strive to improve in our character and ask the Holy Spirit to help us. And so, yeah, I think it's important. I was just going to say, I left my mind. Yeah, so in terms of, like, I guess just wrapping it up, we've said that, okay, too picky can just be like not being willing to bend, making your preferences a standard when there's a clear difference between the two. Not knowing where you're going is also not great. But yeah, last words, last tips. What would you say to people watching? They've seen the title, your standards are way too high. Maybe they've heard as a Christian woman or man that their standards are way too high. And these are just biblical standards. Actually, first, before we get to that, what would you say are biblical standards? So obviously I'll set off when it comes to, purity. If you're dating someone, right, you shouldn't be having sex. You shouldn't be having, that's in the Bible. Character traits are there. What are some other standards, like things in the Bible that you should look for? I know we kind of touched it before, but what else is there? Obviously character, stuff like that. Anything else that pops to mind, or have we've covered it?
Yeah, I think you said most of them. I think it's just biblical standards. First of all, let me just say this. There's this pastor, I think he's on YouTube. I forgot even his name, but I found his preaching pretty interesting when he spoke about, a guy trying to be with a woman, or not trying to be with a woman, but trying to, marry a woman. He said that, if you don't have a job and you're not able to sustain yourself, how are you going to look after another man's child, a woman, basically? So for me, like referring it back to Adam, right? When we look at the Bible and we see Adam before Eve came, he was already working in the garden. Like God told him, okay, cool. You look after, you tend the earth, the animals, everything. He was working, and I think that pastor took that example to say that before you go look for a woman, make sure that you are stable as a man, that you are able to be that provider. You need to be working, have something stable that she can come into. Do you understand? Because I guess if we relate it to today's day and age, Adam he was living in the gardens. He had a place to live. He had a job, just tending the animals and the earth and everything. So yeah, I think that's what the pastor was going. So for me, if we want to say biblical standards, you as a man, you'd have to really check yourself. Am I ready for marriage first? right? And I say the man, but as well women as well. You know,
Yeah.
am I also ready for marriage?
Yeah.
As far as, am I stable? Am I, even forget stability as well, mentally? Am I
It's
ready
true.
for marriage?
It's true.
I mean, have I gone through so much that, you know, I'm gonna now put the wahala I received from my past relationship on this guy
Yeah.
to, until he proves me wrong, or by the time he proves me wrong, he's run away because he's fed up with me. You know what I mean? And as well, the other time we spoke about, you know, spiritual things as well, but I think I'm going to something else. But to answer your question, for me, I feel biblically it's really important for, before you even think about marriage, to be stable and ready for marriage. Biblically speaking, Adam was working. He, I guess, he was ready to receive Eve in the garden.
No, that's good. That's good. It's a real one. Like, and when you say ready for marriage, it's not even social media marriage. Like, are you ready for the real of marriage, of compromise, of being with someone, doing life with another individual intimately? So good. So I'm just gonna, just because of time, I'm gonna like get you two guys to say your last words when it comes to, let's say that, again, what I was saying before, let's say there's someone who upholds a very high standard. Their preferences are relatively open, but they have high standards. You know, they're getting guys left, right, and center, just coming with nonsense. And they've been told many times that, you know, your standards are too high, you're too picky. What advice would you give to that woman or man?
So they're getting guys left, right, center, different
Yeah.
standards will all meet their standard.
No, so the guys don't necessarily meet their standards, and then maybe they're having like aunties or uncles or even the guys themselves who are below standards, basically telling them that you should lower your standards. You know, you're way too picky. What advice
When
would you
you say
give
they're
them?
below standard, does that mean that they don't want much and they still need to lower it to get whoever comes? Is that what you mean?
No, so the girl, like, let's say that she okay, let's say she's, you know, keeping herself pure, she's walking in integrity, you know, living her life, whatever, and then people come into her life who aren't meeting that standard of, like, you know, having the characteristics that she looks for. Maybe they don't have the job or whatever. Maybe they don't have
Okay.
stuff like that. But and then people are like, because I've heard this like many times actually from different people, that they're like, well, your standards are too high. Maybe you're single because your standards are too high. What advice would you give to that person?
That's a lot of pressure. So I
It is,
definitely say pray and be
yeah,
patient, because you're the one that's going to be in the relationship
Yeah.
your life. So don't succumb to the pressure of the, you know, obviously listen, because listening is key. But that's my take.
I agree with you 100%, Tito. Praying and having peace with the situation, because you know you can get families that tell you, oh, when you're getting older, like you really need to get married, and you know you should really lower your standards because you know you're a woman and having children at a certain age, and you hear so many of these things. But at the end of the day, they will not be in that marriage with you. Do you
yeah,
have peace with this person? Do you have conviction? Have you prayed and God has told you, okay, cool, like D or Adegail or Tito, he is the one. Go ahead, like.
it's
And
true.
obviously, I've heard someone before that God is not the one that picks your spouse. Is more of, God, this is who I like. You know, do I have your go ahead? Do I have peace about it? Like, are you going to give, like, have I received peace about the relationship or about us being together and with everything aligned? Because we spoke about red flags and uh, having people being like so many different things, you
Yeah,
know, outside of just your heart, because you know emotions can get in the way of so many things and
yeah,
can cloud your better judgment.
yeah.
So for me, I said a lot of things, but if I could really finish with one line, would be pray, have peace, and don't focus too much on what others think. Because at the end of the day, you are going to marry this person, you will be in the house with this person, doing life with this person. So do you have peace? Are you happy? Even if you're 29, about to hit 30, and you still don't
Yeah,
have anybody, are you don't I feel don't settle just because
yeah,
of your age,
yeah,
because then you're settling because you're pursuing marriage, but then marriage, you know, the grass isn't green on the other side.
Mm.
In a sense where, like, not to say that marriage isn't great, it's great to have a spouse to speak to be next to, you know,
Yeah.
to share with, to have to, you know, a companion, to not be lonely. It's fantastic, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But you do go through ups and downs, and if there's more downs than up, then it's like, did I really compromise?
Mm.
So,
Yeah. That's really good. And then to flip it for the last one, to the person who their preferences are their standards. So if he doesn't come in a certain package, then it's a wrap. You're bye.
so the preferences is the standard.
So for example, like if he doesn't hit the box of tall, dark, and handsome, earning 5 figures,
If you
and
go, you need to mature up. That's what I would say. So, I mean, I don't know how to say it, but like I said earlier, you have to be attracted to your partner, right? And obviously, I know you've got standards and everything, and what you would want. But like you said, if the preference become a standard, and it's an issue of your own character that you probably need to check yourself. That's what I would say.
yeah.
So yeah.
What about you, Tisa?
Yeah, I'm nodding my head. Yeah.
Okay, short and sweet. Okay, cool. Yeah, and I'll just say to round it up, I agree. When it comes to all of this relationship stuff, firstly, just being prayerful about it is important, but knowing who you are, and I've said this pretty much every episode, is just so important, especially as women, men too, of course, but like we're talking to women. Know who you are, like know where you're called to go, know your calling, know, you know, the vision that God has for you, and just use this time to get to know God more, get to know yourself more, and have standards. Like that's something I push with my friends, with like have standards, stick to your standards, no matter if the emotions come, they come, go to, like feelings fade, but have your standards, because once those feelings fade, it's like those things that you've chosen and seen in a person, that's the thing that's going to help to sustain that sort of relationship. Go on, Dee.
So one thing I want to add to what you're saying is that, you know, it sounds so boring at times. It could sound so boring and cliche to say, oh, you know, just pray and just better yourself and everything. But it's so real, because think about it. You're going to nursing school to one day become a nurse. But you're working towards becoming a nurse. You don't just get up and become a nurse.
Yeah.
You understand? So if you're looking to get, you know, you want to be a wife, you want to get married and everything, like you know, Adegail just said, work on yourself. Like I said, it sounds so cliche and boring. You know, work on yourself, better yourself, pray, get close to God. But that's what you want, because you don't know what you'll be facing in marriage. There's certain challenges that you'd have wished you were close to God. You'd have wished you knew yourself in Christ. You'd have wished you knew how to lean on the words more, to like use the word in certain situations to be like, okay, cool, no, God hasn't given me the spirit of fear. Oh no, this story so and so happened. You know, I need to be this kind of woman. This is what I need to be. Like the Bible gives, there's just so much. So the Bible is so jam packed that, you know, it's so important to really build yourself on a spiritual level, on every kind of level, if I tell you the truth, before you get into marriage. So like I said, yes, it does sound cliche and like, oh yeah, we've heard it a million times.
Yeah.
But trust and believe that it's not when you get into marriage that you want to practice these things. You know, you want to be that prayer warrior, because you probably get into a situation where one day your husband would need you to hold everything up, to be that prayer warrior, so that the burden will be on your shoulder. But then if you've never been in that position before, what do you think is going to happen? If not by grace, I just see a regular person crumbling. Do you know what I mean?
It's true.
Yeah, like what Adegail said about you know, working on yourself, seeking God, it's so important. Though it sounds cliche, it's so.
Yeah, no, that's so good. And I think there's something that people often say, that things that you practice in singlehood is the things that show itself in marriage, in the sense of like, these practices go into, and it's true. And I think they also say that, you know, trying to butcher. We're not even go to that point. That could be another conversation. But I'm just going to end up by reading this. So what we're saying is, stay prayerful, keep working on yourself, know what you're called to, or at least be working towards it. Have high standards but flexible preferences. And I think that's the difference. You can have preferences, but let them be flexible, more or less. Have high standards that are biblical. What does the Bible say about this person? What does it say of character? Are you meeting that yourself? Always work to like improve. So we're going to end. Thank you guys for being on this live. Thank you for your time and your contributions. I appreciate it. And we will be back next week, I think, with another topic. I'm going to bring some guys on because we've had a lot of women.
It would be nice, interesting to have like women, talking and debating on certain topics. Yeah.
It's interesting trying to get guys to talk like on camera because I have people, but it's like on camera. But we'll work on it. But yeah, have a lovely evening, guys, and I will.
Thank you for having us.
No problem. If you're watching this, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.
Take care. Bye.